/AskReddit by Reddit. What is the most disrespectful thing a guest ever did in your home? My roommates and I lived in a basement suite in a house during our second year of university with the landlord upstairs. The landlord was the chillest landlord who ever existed and was fine with us throwing parties every weekend pretty much. She had rented to a group of musicians 4 years before us and was accustomed to the noise. One time she came down the set of stairs connecting the upper and lower suites to drop off some mail. The door in our basement is normally locked from the outside, so we can't go upstairs through it, but she must have forgotten to lock it back up on her way out. Later that night we noticed that one of our friends, John, had disappeared. His shoes were still by the door, so we assumed he had walked outside barefoot. We didn't really make much of it because he suddenly appeared back half an hour later. The next day the landlord comes down and says that we had an escapee last night. We were all confused for a moment, but then it all clicks for us at the same time. John. She recounted the story of what happened to us. Turns out John had been feeling adventurous and without realizing what he was doing, opened the door to the upstairs and walked up. He made his way to the fridge, opened it and started eating handfuls of pie straight from the tin. Not only was she cool enough to not immediately call the police or put an end to our party, she started talking to him. She asked him how old he was. 19. We are Canadian, so we are legal to drink. She follows up with how long have you been 19? Thinking it was his birthday, which would explain the excessive drunkenness. His answer to that was I've been 19 for 2 years. I'm from Campbell River, a small town in BC, where time moves incredibly slowly. After her laughing at his joke and finishing his handful of life, she escorted him back downstairs like nothing had ever happened. Back in my bachelor days, my buddy and I decided to hit the nightlife in some bars in Austin. I was never a big drinker and had a few beers over the course of the evening. He was drinking vodka all night, like it was water. Needless to say, he was in no condition to drive across town to his place, so I told him he could just crash at mine. Sunday morning and I'm getting ready for church. Knock on the door and ask if he's okay. Told him he could sleep in while I'm gone if he wants to, but he just says he's got to get going and quickly leaves. Get back from church a few hours later and the entire apartment smells like poop. Sniff out the source in the guest bed. Evidently the ducker had woken up during the middle of the night and evacuated a beagle-sized turd into my sheets, rolled them up, and then continued sleeping the rest of the night in the same bed he had befouled. The real WTF, other than sleeping all night next to a rolled up sheet with your own monstrous juice in it, is that he could have just stayed after I left, cleaned up, and I would have probably never known. Duck you, Warren. This happened to my friend. She has a koi pond in her backyard that her and her husband built themselves. It's a nice little pond in the ground with rocks and a waterfall. They also have a couple of cats. They go out of town for a couple weeks and one of her work friends takes care of her house. A few days in, this work friend comes over and dumps the entire bag of cat food onto the kitchen floor. Then she decided that the water in the koi pond looked a bit low, so they turn on the hose to top it off. Only they forget to turn the hose off when they leave. She never comes back to the house to check on anything. A couple days later, the neighbor notices that their backyard is flooded and that there's koi swimming around in the yard. They turn off the water and try to catch the koi, but are not successful. The koi end up dying or getting away. Luckily the cats inside were okay. The neighbor calls my friend to tell her what happened. Let's just say that my friend is not friends with her co-worker anymore. Edit. I told my friend about this subreddit and how I posted what happened to her, and she wanted me to also tell you that a tree that was supposed to be watered in the front yard died because her friend didn't water it. When I was about 4, I got a stuffed rabbit wearing pajamas from a family friend of ours. We lived in a house that was over 100 years old, and my parents found the original family who lived there, or rather, their descendants, and we became fast friends. We called her Aunt Janie, even though she wasn't related. So Aunt Janie sent me the rabbit in pajamas, and I took him everywhere. It took serious work for me not to take him to school. His fur was white as snow, so I named him Sugar. Sugar was my bro. I told him everything. which as a military kid who moved every year and never got to make serious friends, ended up being quite a bit. Sugar and I loved watching the fish tank my mom had got me. I would just put my rocking chair up right in front of the tank, and it was better than TV to me. So we moved to the armpit of the US, a little town called Altus, Oklahoma. There was a girl next door who didn't seem very nice, but she had a trampoline, so I was willing to deal with it, on the hopes of getting those sweet jumpy jumps. She came over to our house first, just as a getting to know you first introduction, and Sugar was pulling reckon with me. She asked if she could see my rabbit, and I thought hard, could I trust her? Should I do it, so we could be friends, and jump on the trampoline? I decided it couldn't hurt. After all, we were on me and Sug's home turf. I no sooner handed her my best friend than she snatched him away, tore off both of his arms, and ripped him from stem to stern. It was a long time in my life before I knew pain like that again. Fortunately, I had a first-class trauma surgeon in my family, and Dr. Mom spent a solid 30 minutes in the operating suite, or dining room table, your call, fixing my boy up. Sugar is still my point man for life. My husband's uncle's wife died. They were married for 30 years, total sweethearts, and he was devastated. Aunt Dot was wonderful, everyone loved her. He couldn't cope being alone, so he put an ad out on Match.com and the first woman to reply, he married. She is the definition of white trash. He brought her to our house to stay for a long weekend, to help us put in a deck in our backyard, and so we could meet her. She decided to buy a puppy on the drive over, which wasn't potty trained. It was a Pomeranian, and I thought it was full grown and housebroken. I'm at work when they arrive. I come home to pee, puddles all over my living room, with her sitting on my couch on a new laptop he bought her. She wasn't watching her puppy, just letting it roam. I was in the kitchen at first, and didn't see what her puppy has done. Within 5 minutes, she told me how Aunt Dot's adult children were terrible and trying to take his money, that they didn't approve of her, and on and on. Then I saw the dog. I have 2 dogs myself, but she had locked them outside. Needless to say, the weekend was cut short and left early. Your uncle-in-law needs a divorce. Had a friend staying with us for a while. She was trying to get back on her feet. I had just adopted a new kitten, about 10 weeks old. One day, I'm standing in the kitchen, talking with said friend, when I hear my new kitty meowing, loudly, but sounds kind of muffled. I proceed to start looking around for her. She sounded distressed. Said friend just stands there, with a kind of crooked smile. So, I asked her where the kitten was. She said she had no idea. The meows are getting less and less, and I'm walking all over the place, waiting for the next meow to lead me to her. She was in the freezer. WTF. I pretty much screamed at the psycho upon retrieving my shivering, confused and miserable kitten. What the duck did you do? She smiled and said, I thought you knew, cats love to be cold. I told her, well, that's just great, and since she claimed to love and understand cats so much, she will appreciate how cold she would be tonight, on the street, out of my house. I told her she had about 10 minutes to get her stuff and get out, or not only would she be getting an ass kicking, I would be calling the police regarding her cruelty to animals. She left. Kitty survived to be 18 years old. I live on a boat. It's a cargo ship built in 1924 and converted into a liveaboard in the 50s, but it's still a boat. We sail on it every summer pretty much. The first thing we tell guests is to be conservative with water, because we have tanks that need to be filled, and to not put anything in the toilets. The plumbing is much narrower than in a house, and we have septic tanks that don't handle cellulose very well. It's not even a problem, because we have trash cans everywhere. Basically the idea is, if you didn't eat it or drink it first, then it has no business being in the toilet. Yet some people just don't get it, or don't care. Our tanks and pump can handle some toilet paper, like in case of a slip up or just general absent-mindedness. Long story short, people with a young kid came over. Kid needed a diaper change. Mom proceeded to shove dirty diaper and wet wipes into the toilet, despite there being a very obvious sign and a trash can 20 centimeters away. Obviously the next day everything died, and we had to pull the whole toilet plumbing tank pump system apart. Also it was the middle of summer, so yeah, that was fun. Needless to say they were not invited over again. Who ducking flushes a diaper? WTF. That's straight up sabotage. Thank you for watching Reddit. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more r/AskReddit videos. Share your stories in the comment section below.